Hello everybody, it's Vertical Sandwich. Welcome back to Book Reviews. So I have to look at something very quickly and I'm going to do that on camera. You ready? This week it's The Gods Themselves by Isaac Asimov. And Asimov won the Hugo Award twice. We're going to talk about all the Hugo Award winning novels. He won for one of the books in his Foundation series, I believe Foundation's Edge. And we'll talk about that series. I've read that entire series, and it's one of my, I like to talk about sci-fi series. I do. So, in the year 2100, the invention of the electron pump, an apparently inexhaustible supply of free energy, has enabled humanity to break free of the Earth and establish a foothold in the wider solar system. But the electron pump works by exchanging materials with a parallel universe, and such unbalancing of the cosmos has consequences. Now the race is on to prevent a vast nuclear explosion in the heart of the sun and the vaporization of Earth exactly 8 minutes later. Okay, so here's the thing about this book. So, first off, this is 3 books. It's one book, but it's in 3 different sections. And in a way, I believe that those 3 different sections are genre parodies. Are like parodies of other science fiction writers or other science fiction types. That like the first half is kind of hard science fiction. The second half is kind of like weird alien science fiction, and then the third half is like magazine pulp science fiction. And I think Asimov was trying to kind of make fun of kind of the way science fiction could be presented by writing 3 different stories that make up a novel. I also want to say Isaac Asimov is a legend in the field of science fiction. I'm going to say that a lot, but there are guys who, even if you've never read a sci-fi book, you've probably heard of like Asimov's Rules of Robotics, or you've probably heard of Arthur C. Clarke. Like these guys are beyond; they're bigger than science fiction. And Asimov is a fun writer. Asimov will always be a fun writer. But here's the thing, is I've read a lot of Asimov because it's easy. If you just want to turn off your brain and read a good story, buy an Asimov novel. Just buy any Asimov novel. It doesn't matter. It's going to be all right. It's going to be an okay book. But like, here's the thing, is this is Asimov turned up to 11. That like, you want to see a writer, when you're familiar with their work, you want to see them reach kind of the height of you really want to see like, what's the best you can ever do? Like, what's the greatest thing that you're ever going to, and this is it. Like, you read this and you can't even believe. Like, if you're familiar with Asimov, you'll go like, I cannot believe Isaac Asimov wrote that book. Like, it's so insanely like out of sequence chapters, and like the time differences between these parallel universes, and then these 3 very distinctly written pieces kind of putting themselves together to give you a complete story that spans multiple universes. You just go, oh wow, like, oh wow, Asimov. So like, this is the thing. If you're going to read Isaac Asimov, don't start with us, because you're never going to start with the Foundation series. Start with the Foundation series and then read some of his mysteries or something, or, just some of his kind of more mainstream science fiction, and then read this. Read this last, so you just go, oh. I don't know if you'll actually do that. I didn't. This is actually one of the first books by him I ever read, and I was amazed by it. So it's actually in 3 sections, and the 3 sections actually form a phrase. So let's see if I can. Against stupidity, the gods themselves, I think, struggle in vain, I believe is the. But let's see. Contend in vain. So against stupidity, the gods themselves contend in vain. Against stupidity, boom, first book. The gods themselves, boom, second book. Contend in vain, boom, third book, or third section. So the first section is all about the invention of the electron pump and figuring out that it, like, whatever's the year, but like it ends up like exchanging stuff with this parallel dimension, and what it ends up doing is altering the strong nuclear force in our universe. And so then they're trying to figure out ways. So then in the second section, it's about the parallel universe and them figuring out that it's doing the opposite to them and that they need to stop it. Because the people on Earth who are trying to stop it, they can't. And then the third section is about a guy who figures out a different solution, right? So, which I'm not going to tell you about. But the third one is, the third section of this is so unbelievably, bizarrely not belonging in this book, where you just go like, is this a leftover 50s sci-fi like magazine story that you had laying around, and you just wrote and maybe he did, maybe he wrote 3 different things at 3 different periods of his life, because it reads like 3 different period genre science fiction books. But I love that about it. I loved this book. So by now he was coming to Loston again. This is in the second one, where it's in a parallel universe where beings are in groups of 3, that they're like trisexual in a way, right? A long time had passed since those earlier days when he first learned that the universe was coming to an end, and that, as it turned out, the hard ones were resolutely laboring to live on anyway. He himself had become adept in many fields, and Loston confessed that in physics there was little he could any longer teach Odin that a soft one could profitably learn, and there were other young rationals to take in hand, so he did not see Loston as frequently as he once did. Odin found Loston with 2 half-grown rationals in the radiation chamber. Loston saw him at once through the glass and came out, closing the door carefully behind him. My left, dear, he said, holding out his limbs in a gesture of friendship, so that Odin, as so often in the past, experienced a perverse desire to touch, but controlled it. How are you? I did not mean to interrupt, Loston, sir. Interrupt? Those 2 will get along perfectly well by themselves for a time. They are probably glad to see me go, for I am sure I weary them with overmuch talk. Nonsense, said Odin. You always fascinated me, and I'm sure you fascinate them. Well, it is good of you to say so. I see you frequently in the library, and hear from others that you do well in your advanced courses, and that makes me miss my best student. How is Trit? Is he as parentally stubborn in his ways as ever? More stubborn every day. He gives strength to the triad. And Dua? Dua, I have come. She is very unusual, you know? Loston nodded. Yes, I know that. His expression was one that Odin had grown to associate with melancholy. Odin waited a moment, then decided to tackle the matter directly. He said, Loston, sir, was she brought to us, to Trit and myself, just because she was unusual? Loston said, would you be surprised? You are very unusual yourself, Odin, and you have told me on a number of occasions that Trit is. Yes, said Odin with conviction, he is. Then oughtn't your triad include an unusual emotional? There are many ways of being unusual, said Odin thoughtfully. In some ways, Dua's odd ways displease Trit and worry me. May I consult you? Always. She is not fond of melting. Remember. Loston listened gravely, to all appearances unembarrassed. Odin went on, she is fond of melting when we melt. That is, but it is not always easy to persuade her to do so. Loston said, how does Trit feel about melting? I mean, aside from the immediate pleasure of the act, what does it mean to him besides pleasure? The children, of course, said Odin. I like them, and Dua likes them too, but Trit is the parental. Do you understand that? It suddenly seemed to Odin that Loston couldn't possibly understand all the subtleties of the triad. I try to understand, said Loston. It seems to me, then, that Trit gets more out of melting than melting alone. And how about yourself? What do you get out of it besides the pleasure? Odin considered, I think you know that, a kind of mental stimulation. Yes, I know that, but I want to make sure you know. So, like, Asimov has a lot of fun exploring this idea of these aliens that melt together to mate, and are a triad where one is intellectual, one is parental, and one is emotional. And then he has a lot of fun with the hard science of kind of this electron pump and this exchange of matter and strong and weak nuclear force, whatever, between these parallel universes. And then at the end, he has a ton of fun with the idea of this guy going to the moon and there being a moon revolution, like, incoming, which has to be a shot at Heinlein. It has to be. There's no way it's not him just going like, I'll see your moon as a harsh mistress, Heinlein, and raise you this, like, and that's the thing. That's the thing about it is, when I first read it, I went, oh, this is a brave and interesting story. And then when I read more sci-fi, I was just like, and a commentary. It's a commentary. It's a very meta science fiction novel. And here's the thing. You don't need to have read anything else. You can read this and you can enjoy it. But if you've read other science fiction, you'll get that. You'll read it and go, oh, I get it. Oh, didn't I say this earlier? I was like, why do you do this? Oh, yeah. I see. Heinlein. Oh, I see. Clark, yeah. Yeah. Yes. So this is, like I said, I don't think that this should be your first Asimov novel, but I think you should read Asimov novels. I think even a bad Asimov novel is okay. It's better than Down Below Station. Now, that being said, this is a fantastic Asimov novel. This is the best thing I'm going to review by Asimov. This is probably the best thing Asimov ever wrote. That being said, I mean, it's worth a read. Its pacing is nice. It's actually under 300 pages, and the fact that it's set up as 3 different books really makes the pacing for it nice. And the wonderful thing about this book is if you don't like the first section, you'll probably like the second. I guess the problem is if you like the first 2 and you hate the third. So it's kind of like reading a trilogy of novels, but all in one novel. And I like that too. This is one of the more interesting kind of Hugo Award winners, especially from a traditional science fiction kind of author, that this is kind of so broken up as far as time and layout format. But it works. It works so well for Asimov, and it's not kind of standard Asimov fare either, which Asimov has kind of a regular universe he works in that involves things like robots and giant galactic civilizations, and that's not this. This is just kind of about Earth. Like I said, and it seems to me like Asimov's attempt to kind of answer the genre and be like, oh, we write this thing, so this is my thing about this. And when he did it, he just happened to hit oil. He just dunk and went, oh, this is the best thing I've ever written. And maybe he didn't think that. Maybe he really loved Foundation, which is good, but I like this better. So yes, I think you should read The Gods Themselves by Isaac Asimov. This is also a sci-fi masterwork. I mean, if you put these together, they're going to look really nice on a bookshelf. They look identical. They don't look nice. They looks like I ordered a set of dictionaries. So that is our Hugo Award winner for today. And when we come back, I believe we'll be doing one book out of a series by an author that went back to back. So when we come back, there'll be that. Thank you for watching. These books are sci-fi masterwork collections. They're available anywhere. It's just like anywhere. These Isaac Asimov stuff is available everywhere. Everywhere that sci-fi is sold. So, check it out. And I will see you guys for the next review. Bye, everybody.